So year end, I think, is the last subject.
So regardless of what approach you're using, obviously you'd get to the 31st of March, you'd get your data on, you'd reconcile your bank, and you do, if you can, do a VAT claim or VAT return up until the 31st of March, because that keeps it neat and tidy. So at that point, once everything's in, it's reconciled, you're happy with the coding, that it's all there, you're ready to move into year end. Okay, so we had a little look at what you do in income and expenditure. This is receipts and payments, as we can see in the menu option here, and that is easier than income and expenditure because there's less to consider in here. So what you get here is you get this receipts and payments account, and this is a summary of everything in here. Let me put you back up here now. So this is a summary of everything that's gone through. So this time it literally is receipts and payments, and literally what's gone in for the entire year itself is what's going to come out the other end on your annual return. So it's not going to move around because you're not doing these adjustments. And this is a summary that you'd want to keep alongside it. This one produces with this signed off and a date. So this is something, so you'd have a specific meeting at year end to approve the year end accounts. So this is something that you take along with you for signing off, that you'd have in there. Okay, so that would be a summary of everything you've put through. So there shouldn't be any surprises at this point, because obviously if you've done everything, you've checked it or you've reconciled it, this should just be a cursory glance to say, yes, these are all the items I'm expecting to see at that point. Then it's just about updating your asset register. So in Scribe, so I've only got 3 assets in here, but obviously you may have lots and lots of assets and choose to manage it comprehensively in here. It is also possible, if you do manage it outside of Scribe, that you can just put one entry in for your total council assets so that it still appears on the box, but you can put all that information in. So it's just about checking this at year end. Have I got everything on? Have I bought anything in this current financial year that I've not added? Have I disposed of anything that I need to update? Okay, so you check your asset register. Same with the borrowings. Okay, so this is if you've got a loan, so you'd need to update that, and you'd need to update the outstanding amount. So if you've been making loan repayments throughout the financial year, you might just need to come in here. And so I've paid some loans, so now at the end of the year, it's now 4,000, whatever it is, update it accordingly. So this asset and borrowings happens regardless of whether you're in receipts and payments or income expenditure, you'd still do that. Okay, but once you've done that, you're then ready to run it. So once you've identified all of those things, you can literally come in here and run the annual return that will look like this, and it pulls all the information through for, as we can see. So this would be where you would sense check it, things being, obviously you know what your precept should be, you'd be seeing that information in here, and your staff costs, obviously you'd expect to see them in there and pulling it all through, and obviously box 7 and box 8 are the same because that's how it works in there. So again, you'd be wanting to check that. So if you've used Scribe for a prior year, you will see your information in here. I'm not seeing that because I'm currently defaulting to income and expenditure, but you can, as I said, you can move between them. So if I've done last year in income and expenditure, but if I went back and updated it to receipts and payments and copied it over, I'd then see that information, but I'm not seeing that because of the income and expenditure. But what this will bring everything through, it's got our assets and our loans, so you updated that to 4,000 as we looked at, that's come through. And at that point, you'd be then ready to take that information, put it into your form from the auditor and submit it. And then you'd be ready to go. So you do your bank reconciliation outside of that, explanation of variances, but all the main figures are pulled through into here.
Great. Regarding the assets, how do you value the assets? What's the structure for that?
So generally, what you'll generally do is just literally the purchase value. So dealing with assets is another thing that kind of catches people out, because a lot of, if you've come from a commercial background and you're used to depreciation and thinking about that, you forget all that. That doesn't happen. You literally record the asset at the purchase value. If you were gifted it, you'd enter it as a nominal pound, and that's the figure that you would then use. Generally, that would be true. You'd always use the purchase value, and the total of them will be what feeds through to your box 9 on the annual return. You could decide to use the current value and update this accordingly, but providing you use, obviously the approach is the same, and if you move between them you advise the auditor, but then that's clearly stated. But if it's the purchase value, then it's nice and straightforward to use, because that purchase value obviously won't change once you bought it. That's the figure, and you just, all you need to think about is updating it if you buy something in the year, if you dispose of something in the year. Other than that, that's all you need to worry about, and that will be your figure that feeds through.
I do have one question on that, Hannah.
Yeah, sure.
So let's say you're a council that has a war memorial as part of your assets. They wouldn't necessarily know what, well, they haven't got a purchase value for it because it's been there, you know, many years. So how would they put some sort of value against an asset like that?
So that would just be the nominal pound. So if you use the purchase value approach, if you've been gifted something, or it's just it's just part of the council and you've got nothing to say where, you know, how you came to own it or how it came about, you just have a pound against it, and that would be what you'd use. If you ever did you move between the approaches to current value, you'd obviously have to put a value on it and advise the auditor that you've done that. And within Scribe, when you set your profile details in here, which I was talking about when you want to move between whether your receipts and payments or income and expenditure, you can also set your asset valuation method. So generally you'll be purchase value and that will feed through there. But if you decided you actually wanted to show the current value in box 9, you can set that and then that will feed through for you as well. So that's something that you can change if you want to. But as long as you're consistent with the approach that you use, that's the main thing in there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you mind opening up the year-end menu again, please, Hannah?
Yeah, sure.
So to run through this, you've got the reports you do at year end. You do the top one, the rec and pay account. Check that out, and then you go through your assets to make sure your assets are valued right. If you don't know the value, if it's an old thing, you don't know it's nominal. If it's gifted, it's nominal £1.
Yep.
You update your borrowings, and
Yep.
then you run your annual return. That's it.
Pretty much as simple as that, yeah. So providing you've done sort of the work on a monthly basis of getting that data in, reconciling it, checking it, when you get to year end, if you're in receipts and payments, it's just about updating your asset register if you need to, checking your borrowings figure if you've got a loan. Often it's not that common to have a loan actually, running the annual return, obviously making sure that you're happy with everything, and then you've done it, you're good to go.
And how is that? I mean, we looked at it briefly earlier with the income and expenditure, the year end, did we? Or
yeah, that's what we started with, yeah.
Yeah. So on this one then, Hannah, the close accounts, what's that?
So this is the point at which you've done, so when you've finished and you submit it to the auditor and you don't want anything to change, you can then close accounts. So this is a particularly good thing to do. Once you've set up your new financial year and you're ready to start entering data into there, it's easy to be in the wrong year when you log on and forget where you are and put an entry on incorrectly. So it's worth closing accounts. So in here, there's options. The top one will lock the financial year so it can't be amended. You can't go and add any data, you can't change anything. That can be undone. So if you lock it down now and then at a later date you need to restate the year, or the auditor said I need you to change something, you can undo it, you can do. But what it will do is lock it down to save you entering anything in there. And the other option is that then you copy the year-end data over. If you were in income and expenditure, you'd have 2 tick boxes, but basically you tick both in the bottom section, and then that copies over your current financial year to show as your prior year, so that when you come to doing your annual return in the next year, you've already got your last year's data in because it's just copied it over. So that's ready to go.
And so the auditor, you could give the auditor a read-only login to this, and they can go through the reports themselves and see all the data. They can see everything. You haven't got to print everything out for them.
So that would be your internal auditor. So you could certainly let them have a look and they can come and check sort of the procedures, the processes that you use. Obviously with the external auditor, you still have to send that off directly to them in their format that they provide to you. But yeah.
Fantastic. So Hannah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Big round of applause from me and Mel.
No problem at all.